From the Skyloft Studios high above the streets of downtown Nashville, Tennessee, it's the Tony Vanic Show, bringing you truth, facts, and his unadulterated opinion. Now here's your host, Tony Vanic.
All right, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me. Today's show is brought to you by Hometown Water Solutions. Get state-of-the-art, world-class water filtration at a hometown price with hometown service. Veteran-owned and operated, and proudly supporting our military, law enforcement, and first responders everywhere. Call 877-896-6266 to find out how to schedule your in-home water analysis and mention the Tony Vanic Show for 10% off your whole home system. Financing is available. Some restrictions may apply. The number again is 877-896-6266. Call now. Hometown Water Solutions, because living without soft water is simply hard. All right, today's show is definitely not going to be as long as my first video. I want to thank everybody for supporting my channel and helping me kind of get this thing launched. What we're going to be talking about today is Black Lives Matter and Antifa, who they are, who's behind it, and what they stand for, and who's funding them. So we're gonna do a bit of a deep dive into some of the background on the people that founded it. We're going to talk about the funding of these organizations, what they stand for, who's behind it, and what their ultimate goal is. Now, I've been telling people for quite a while now that Black Lives Matter, the organization, is a Marxist organization. And in light of everything that's going on in these cities around the country where this organization is extremely active out in the streets, there is no mistaking that these people are terrorists. Hate me for saying it, whatever. I'm going off of facts and what I'm seeing in real time on the streets. This is a Marxist terrorist group hell-bent on destroying this country. We're going to show who's funding it and just what these people are all about. So getting into the founders of Black Lives Matter, we have Patrice Colors. Now, she's a self-professed American artist and activist. She's also a Marxist, and in her words, a trained Marxist, along with her friend, Alicia Garza, who is another very radical individual involved in this organization, and Opal Tometi, who is, again, another very radical human rights activist. Now, the founding of this entire organization was based on a complete fabrication. And I'm going to tell you why I said that. Because if you go back and look at when this organization started and why it was founded, if you do just a little bit of research, you're going to see that this organization was launched due to this event right here, the shooting of Trayvon Martin. Now, if you look at the actual facts of this case, it was determined, first of all, George Zimmerman was acquitted in court. And then there were no other charges filed against him civilly by the Department of Justice. And who was the Attorney General during that time? Eric Holder, under the Obama administration. So if there were any inkling of a civil rights violation, that they could have hung this guy out to dry and made an example out of him, believe me, they would have done it. But they had nothing to go on, so they had to drop the case. These people are still up in arms and fighting for Trayvon Martin. That's their poster child for this whole movement. And the whole thing is built on a farce. It's a complete lie. As I explain to people that these people are Marxists, and don't take my word for it, we can just listen to Miss Colors in this interview. She flat out says that her and her friend are trained Marxists. So this video is it's only about a minute and 25 seconds. So I'm going to go ahead and play it, and you can see for yourself exactly what she says. It's her words, not mine.
He was concerned, or is concerned, that there's a lack of perhaps ideological direction in Black Lives Matter that would allow it to fizzle out, as he said, in comparison to Occupy Wall Street. As you are advanced in your own organization, as you all are headed to Cleveland to participate in this Black Lives movement conference, how do you respond to that particular critique? Again, a loving critique from an elder of the struggle that some others share, that I've even shared as well, to be frank, as a concern about, in part because of the co-optation and the appropriation, that a more clear ideological structuring might be of some value here. But how do you respond to those kinds of, again, loving criticisms?
I think that the criticism is helpful. I also think that it might. I think of a lot of things. The first thing I think is that we actually do have an ideological frame. Myself and Alicia in particular are trained organizers. We are trained Marxists. We are super versed on sort of ideological theories.
Okay. So again, don't take my word for it. Take her word for it. They are trained Marxists. Her and her friend, Alicia, trained Marxists. And they are trained in an ideology that lines up with Marxism. If you don't know what Marxism is, please look it up. I don't have time to go through all the intricacies of Marxism, but let's just say Marxism is the antithesis of capitalism. So, that being said, let's move on. They are trained Marxists, which does not bode well for the United States of America if this group gets a foothold and tries to change things from the inside out, because there are already politicians that are being supported financially by outside entities, and we'll get into these entities here in a minute, that they're left-wing liberal Democrat politicians that are being groomed and put into place to push this kind of an agenda. And they're looking at a long game. They're not looking at short term. They've been working on this for decades, trying to infiltrate the Senate, trying to infiltrate Congress, the House of Representatives. They're putting these radicals in there to absolutely disintegrate the Constitution and everything that you and I hold dear as Americans. So this article is from the Washington Times. It was released back in August of 2016, August 16th, 2016. And it basically lays out where the money's coming from. And this is 4 years ago. So it goes through and says that they basically were given over $100 million from liberal foundations. And it goes on to say that the funding comes in addition to the $33 million in grants given to Black Lives Matter movement from top Democratic Party donor George Soros. Okay. George Soros. And how did George Soros funnel that money to Black Lives Matter? Through this organization, through Open Society Foundations. Where have you heard Open Society Foundations before? If you watched the first video where I talked about the Transition Integrity Project, it was funded and run by the Open Society Foundation folks. Rosa Brooks, she's on the board of that Open Society, which is run and funded by George Soros. So again, I can't make this stuff up, folks. It's right there in black and white. And it's really aggravating because the left-wing media, the mainstream media, is, first of all, they won't report on this. They'll downplay it. And then if a story does get out and get some traction, they call it a conspiracy theory. There's nothing conspiratorial about this. It's right there in black and white. This story is 4 years old, telling you that this individual and his foundation has been funneling tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars into this radical organization. So, who is Open Society Foundations? Well, we know it was founded by George Soros, and this is right from their website, Open Society Foundations, opensocietyfoundations.org. The Open Society Foundations, founded by George Soros, are the world's largest private funder of independent groups working for justice, democratic governance, and human rights. Okay, so as we scroll down here a little bit, George Soros, the founder and chair of the Open Society Foundations, began his philanthropic work in 1979. So he's been actively trying to destroy this country way before this. This is another avenue that he took, but there were other organizations and foundations that he funded way before 1979 to try to infiltrate our government and our government agencies to try to bring down the United States, because he hates America and everything that it stands for. So as you see, here's some earmarks here: 1979, 1984, 1986, 89, 91. It goes on and on and on if you look through the entire history of everything that they were involved in and what they continue to be involved in. Let's see how much money we're talking about in these organizations, because Antifa falls right in line with Black Lives Matter as far as where the money comes from. Here is the financials for the Open Society Foundation. This is right off of their website. And if I scroll down here, you can see I have the United States is highlighted here. So this is the budget sheet for the United States. All the money that they spent or they're planning on spending in 2020. If you look down here at the total, it's $261.1 million that this organization, owned and funded and run by George Soros, has funneled into the United States, into these radical groups to cause mayhem in our streets and to hurt our citizens and to burn down our businesses and to riot against the police departments, causing anarchy and chaos in the streets. If you look at all of these different subject matters here in their budget, some of them I'm not really even sure what they mean, but it's a lot of money. This one here seems to pop up quite a bit, this democratic practice. This is where they funnel money into certain campaigns, and it always seems to tie back to that particular subject, democratic practice. And if you look at the column to the far right, it's $52.6 million. So this is the money that they funnel into Democratic campaigns at the very local level. They're doing this at the very local level. They're even influencing state attorney general to try to overthrow the justice system, to try to have very liberal laws and basically let people out of jail, just decriminalize things. If you're letting criminals out of jail after they've already broken the law, whatever that law may be, what good can come out of it? I don't know. That's a topic for another day. So you can see that there is a massive amount of money that this organization and this individual, George Soros, is funneling to these folks to basically make our lives miserable and destroy our country. Here's an article from the New York Post that I found. If any of you saw my first video about the Transition Integrity Project, you'll know that George Soros and Rosa Brooks and Zoe Hudson, they all tie into this Open Society Foundation. That entire project, the TIP, was funded by this organization. They brought all these people together and they put them together in a big think tank for a few days, and they ran over all these scenarios, these 4 different scenarios, or war games as they call them, and basically painted a picture of absolute chaos if Donald Trump wins the election. They're preparing the public for exactly what they're planning on doing. And if you think that I'm crazy, read the document. I'm not going to go through the whole thing because that took me forever to put that video together, and It's there for you if you want to watch it. If you don't want to see the whole thing because it's about an hour long, just click on the links that I provided and it'll take you to the documents that I used for research. And you'll see it's all right there. It's all right there in black and white. It's not my opinion. So this article goes in, this opinion piece basically goes on and breaks down the violence that this BLM and Antifa protesters, they're not protesters, they're rioters. It's absolute civil unrest and they should be dealt with accordingly. If you're on social media, I'm sure you've seen the videos. They've gone viral with these BML people going through a restaurant, an outdoor eating area, and just flipping chairs over and breaking dishes and knocking people's food off the table and chasing all the patrons out of the area, saying they're gonna burn it down. Your dinner's over. We're gonna burn this place down. What are they protesting? These people are just sitting there having a dinner. They're just enjoying their evening. And these animals come through and just completely destroy the place. There's no rhyme or reason to it, but it's all scripted. And this Miranda Divine goes through and explains a little bit about why they're doing what they're doing. So if you scroll down through this article, she asked the question, and this is a question that I'm sure everybody's been asking. So why don't Democratic leaders do more to condemn the violence and call for calm? That's a good question. And there's a reason for it, because this is all by design. And they're doing this to try to pin all this unrest on Trump. And it's documented in that TIP. You can read it for yourself. There's another thing that they do, actually the government does, government agencies do, to influence the governments of other countries. Whether it's right or wrong and different, it's just the way business is done. It's called color revolutions. And she talks about that here. She says the playbook is straight from the strategies the US government has deployed in so-called color revolutions in Eastern Europe countries such as Ukraine or Belarus to remove authoritarian leaders deemed hostile to American interests. Well, if you look at what happened in Ukraine with the Orange Revolution, they called it. If you look at who was funding that movement, believe it or not, it was George Soros. Whatever his interests are in being involved in that, he funded that entire thing. He's not a stranger to these tactics. Apparently, the Democrats are playing right along. If you look at what she says right here, it says BLM Antifa's mostly peaceful protests are America's version of Ukraine's Orange Revolution, where civil unrest was fomented on the streets to oust a Kremlin-backed authoritarian. And I will put this article in the notes for this video. Then she brings up the Transition Integrity Project, which again, I encourage you to watch my video about that. It is extremely informative. So she goes on to say, take the Transition Integrity Project, a bipartisan wargaming exercise created by academics, former Clinton and Obama operatives, never Trumper Republicans, journalists, and diplomats, out of concern that the Trump administration may seek to manipulate, ignore, undermine, or disrupt the 2020 presidential election and transition process. They're already laying it out. Again, it goes on. And the troops on the ground facilitating this Transition Integrity Project plan are Black Lives Matter, the organization, and Antifa. Those are the soldiers. Those are the left-wing Democratic soldiers playing out this entire game of trying to overthrow the government, being fed and funded by George Soros. If you go back and look at my video about the TIP, you'll see this name, Rosa Brooks. Her and her buddy, Niles Gilman, they were the brains behind the Transition Integrity Project. As I went through her background, as Miranda does here, she was former special counsel at the George Soros-linked Open Society Foundations. There's the George Soros link again. So don't be fooled. Don't believe everything you hear on mainstream media, whether you're watching CNN or MSNBC or even Fox News. They're giving you the information that you're supposed to hear. It's not always based on fact and truth. Have some discernment and take the time to look elsewhere. Look for news sources that have no agenda. My only agenda is to be able to live in a country that I can be free to do and live the way I feel is beneficial for me and for my family. That's it. But that's not the direction that the Democrats want to go in. They want to go into absolute socialistic, Marxist, government-run, government decision-making over every aspect of your life. And if you think I'm wrong, just do a little research. That's all I ask. I encourage you, I'm going to put all the links to the research that I've used to put this video together as I did the last video. And I encourage you to go and just take a look at it. Read the articles in their entirety. Get a broader view. Expand your mind other than what you hear on the mainstream media, because they're not being completely honest with you. They're not telling you the truth, and they're doing it for a very specific, devious reason. So thank you again for joining me on this beautiful Labor Day evening. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I would appreciate it if you would hit the subscribe button, click on the little bell to make sure that you get notified when I put new content up, and click the like button if you like what I'm doing and you enjoy the information. I try to give you the facts and nothing but the facts. And of course, I will intersperse my opinion, but my opinion is always based on the facts that I find. So again, subscribe, hit the like button, hit the bell. It'll help grow this channel. I appreciate all the support. God bless. God bless our president. God bless the United States of America. Have a wonderful, safe holiday. Thank you.